This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy and features real testimonials.
This was our first time trying therapy, and honestly, it was long overdue. Looking back, we just wish we had started sooner.
Regain's qualified therapists help couples when they can't get there on their own.
We thought it was intimacy issues, but Andrea helped us uncover a deeper root cause we hadn't even realized was there.
Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. Regain, powered by BetterHelp.
Support American-made tariff-free clothing with American Giant. They aren't affected by tariffs because their clothing products never left the U.S. Get 20% off your first order when you use promo code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com.
Welcome to the Covert Narcissism Podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I recently read a post in my Facebook group, Covert Narcissism group, that just stopped me in my tracks. I want to share this with you today. This came from one of the members of the group, and the post read, I saw a post in another group that said women who stay in abusive relationships don't deserve sympathy after a certain point. Now, when I read that, I sat down right then and I started writing this episode because that comment really struck me. It made my blood boil, to be honest. That comment is exactly why we need to talk about covert narcissism, the insidious nature of this abuse, how invisible it is, how confusing it is, and how impossible it is to make sense when you're in this situation, or even to get out or not to get out. What do I do? So I want to dive into this. And I sat there contemplating it, and this is where I want to start. For the person who wrote that, what is that certain point? What they said was women who stay in abusive relationships don't deserve sympathy after a certain point. So, okay, let's start there. What is that certain point? Is it when she's too emotionally exhausted to fight back anymore because she's been fighting for years or decades against this invisible abuse? Or is it when she's financially trapped because he's controlled every penny for years and she doesn't really have a way out? Is it when she's isolated from everyone who ever cared for her because he's spent years quietly dismantling her support system and now she's completely alone with no one to talk to or turn to? Is it when she is so gaslit that she no longer trusts her own memory, her instincts, her perceptions, her thoughts, her feelings, her reality? Is that when she no longer deserves sympathy? To be honest, I even want to ask, is it the moment when her pain makes you uncomfortable? Is it the point where her story no longer fits neatly into your timeline of what getting out should look like? Or is it where it's easier to blame her than to admit how insidious, confusing, and invisible covert abuse really is? Because here's the truth. That so-called certain point says a whole lot less about her, and it actually says a whole lot more about you. Leaving these relationships, leaving a relationship with a covert narcissist, it does not start with a go bag. It doesn't start with a dramatic one-night escape in the dark hours of the night. It doesn't even start the day you walk out the door. Leaving is not a single moment. It's not an event. It's a process. It's not this one big dramatic decision where you grab a bag in the middle of the night and never look back. It doesn't start with a suitcase. It starts with this slow, internal, painful process that most people never see, that the people around you have no clue that you're going through it. If you've never been psychologically trapped inside an abusive relationship, especially one with a covert narcissist, count yourself lucky. But don't assume you would have done it differently. And certainly don't assume that you understand or that you get it. This process is confusing, heartbreaking, I'm going to say heart-wrenching, exhausting like you've never known an exhaustion, and mind-warping. That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome back to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we know that leaving is not as simple as grabbing a suitcase, cueing the dramatic movie soundtrack, because real life doesn't come with background music or a rescue scene. It comes with tears and the sheer willpower to push through when in reality you are so alone. Now let's clear something up right now. Leaving a covert narcissist is not the same as fleeing a visible crisis. If you are in physical danger, if that is the situation that you find yourself in, this is very different. Then you grab your go bag and you get out in the middle of the night. That is different than the emotional, verbal, psychological abuse from a covert narcissist. It's not a single moment of clarity that you actually, grab everything and pack a suitcase and dart out in your car. You're not packing a go bag in the middle of the night while this, again, the dramatic music plays and slipping into the darkness with your kids clutching their stuffed animals. If you do this, by the way, if you actually hit that breaking point, which I do understand, and you run without warning, without a plan, without, going through any type of preparation, it can sometimes make things worse. Picture this. You show up at your sister's house sobbing, or you check into a hotel shaking with no explanation that makes sense to anyone but yourself. And those of us who have lived it. Like, it makes sense. I understand why you're sobbing and why you're shaking. But it doesn't make sense to the people around you. You're not calm. You're not composed. Actually, you're a mess. And of course you are. Again, I understand that. But what happens? The people around you, they look at you and go, well, this is so sudden. I didn't even know anything was wrong. You never mentioned this before. Are you sure this is abuse? Maybe you're just tired. Why don't you go home, make peace, and just get a good night's sleep? As though a good night's sleep is going to magically fix this? But think about the situation. Right now, you look unstable because you've been holding it together for so long. You've been the one keeping everything in place, holding the family unit together, sacrificing yourself over and over until you can't. And now you've unraveled. And this seems so sudden to everyone else, but it's been going on for decades in your world. Now, what about the covert narcissist? They look stable. They're calm, maybe charming. They've even got a story ready to go. They'll say, they've been off lately. I think they're going through something. And I've really been trying to help, but they're just so emotional and irrational these days. And people will believe them because you look irrational at the time, in the moment, to people who haven't seen the abuse, who haven't figured out this is what's going on. You look like the one that's in crisis, and they look like the victim. They look like the reasonable partner who's just trying to help. This just adds to your confusion because now you really start to wonder, maybe everyone else is right. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I did make a mistake. Maybe I am being dramatic. So not only are you dealing with this disbelief from everyone else, from your family and friends, now you're having this disbelief hit hard inside of you. You're dealing with your own guilt, your own confusion, and your own trauma. You're facing accusations. You're facing the pressure to go back. Hey, just go back and make things right. People are blaming you, and you are questioning your own sanity. That is not what I would call a clean break. This is emotional whiplash, and this is layered on top of what's already an unbearable pain. You see, the damage of a relationship with a covert narcissist, it doesn't stop when you walk out the door. In fact, it can intensify, especially if you don't have a plan in place. This is why leaving has to be a process. It's not an event, it's a process. It's a process of steady, emotional disentanglement and strategic preparation. It is not a single event of a desperate escape. So if leaving doesn't start with a go bag, what does it start with? Okay, what does leaving look like? I want to answer this. It looks like these secret late night Google searches is this emotional abuse. It looks like these conversations with Chat GPT where you're typing in all the text messages and getting chat to help you make sense out of it. It looks like hiding all the books, articles, videos while you dive down this rabbit hole of information that resonates so deeply in you that you can't put it down. It looks like putting all the pieces together of why you're feeling the way you do, of realizing that you never laugh or smile anymore, of realizing and seeing how isolated you have become. It looks like journaling, things that he said, things that are ruminating through your head because you're starting to forget what's real. It even looks like getting quiet, strategically quiet, while you observe and gather evidence. You can feel like a detective in this, but you've got to go through this process to get the evidence and the information you need to make sense out of this. It looks like finally reaching out to a therapist, a coach, or even a trusted friend or family member and beginning to share your story. It looks like quietly opening your own bank account, setting a password on your phone, thinking through custody scenarios, housing options, financial security. It looks like going to work and smiling while you plan your exit inside your head. It looks like holding your tongue during the next manipulative circular conversation, not because you agree, but because you're no longer engaging. It looks like starting that process of detaching, of emotionally stepping back, of mentally observing what's going on. This is how you begin to leave. This is how you begin to separate, not physically, emotionally, and mentally, not with a suitcase, but with clarity. This is when you stop playing, this role in their performance, in their world. This is when you begin to see the patterns and you give up hope that things are going to change or get better. And most importantly, this is when you stop blaming yourself. This is what leaving really looks like 1,000 quiet moments where you choose truth over denial.
This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy. Let's be honest. Loving your partner doesn't mean you always like them, and guess what? That's normal. Regain, powered by BetterHelp, offers couples therapy that's flexible, affordable, and 100% online. Whether you're reconnecting or working through conflict, Regain is here to support you both. See why people wish they'd tried couples therapy sooner. Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. That's regain.com/couplespod.
Where you choose reality over their fantasy world, and where you choose yourself over the version of you that keeps pretending that everything's okay. Now, I don't want to downplay what it takes to get there. When you're in a relationship with a covert narcissist, you're not just surviving someone else's manipulative and coercive behavior. You are surviving that, but you're also living inside a carefully constructed psychological trap. One that tells you that you're the problem, that you're the crazy one, you're too sensitive, too demanding, too dramatic, too hard to love. One that tells you it's your job to fix everything. You've been gaslit for so long that you can no longer trust your own mind, your own feelings. So when you start to leave, what you're actually got to do, what you're working on, is rewiring your own brain. You're undoing years and sometimes decades of mental programming. And that takes time. That is part of the process that I'm saying needs to start before you can put yourself in a position to leave. You have to unlearn the belief that it's your job to fix everything, because that's just going to keep you hooked again and again. You can get 3 feet out the door and still get hooked back in because you believe it's your job to fix everything. You have to stop believing their words that you're the problem. You're too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy, too difficult. You even have to confront this fear of being alone, figuring out how to do life without them. You have to let go of the hope that they'll change. That hope keeps people trapped for years. And you have to grieve the relationship that you thought you had. You've spent years, decades, being trained that it's your job to keep the peace, that their moods are your responsibility, that their happiness, their anger, their cold silence, it's all somehow your fault. And this is the part that no one talks about. Yeah, they tell you to just leave, but this is the part that stays invisible. This is the emotional labor that begins long before you ever pack a single bag. By the time you're thinking about leaving, you're not just packing a suitcase. You're untangling yourself from years of mental conditioning. You're challenging every neural pathway that says, if I try harder, this will just get better. If I leave, I'll destroy everything. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's me after all. You are literally retraining your brain to recognize abuse for what it is. Now, if you've ever tried to change a deeply ingrained thought pattern about anything, you know how hard that is. Now, multiply that difficulty level right there by trauma bonding, cognitive dissonance, financial fear, isolation, shame. Now, tell me again, why don't you deserve sympathy? Why don't you deserve, the space to go through this? Why don't you deserve a little bit of understanding and grace? The answer is that you do. And that grace and that compassion and that sympathy does not have an expiration date. It doesn't reach that, okay, we no longer deserve it after a certain point. There is no certain point. This grace stays with you the whole time you're in this process and beyond. Now, let's not forget the very real external barriers that do exist. Emotional clarity is not enough when you're considering leaving a relationship with a covert narcissist. Because even when your mind is screaming, get out, your life circumstances may say, I can't. Even when you know it's abuse, even when you're mentally done or emotionally, shut down, you still have to deal with real life logistics. Here's what I hear from survivors every day. I can't afford to leave. I don't have anywhere to go. We have kids, and I don't want to leave them alone with him or her. I'll lose my health insurance. They threaten to take the kids if I leave, and I'm afraid that might happen. I'm scared that they'll retaliate if I try to leave. My church will judge me. My family doesn't believe me. These are real concerns. Leaving is like this impossible mountain in front of you that it's too scary to even consider crossing it. Leaving can feel like it's increasing the danger. This is why it is so important to get this healing process started before you ever pack that suitcase. Again, not if you're in physical danger. Listen to me, that is different. If you are in physical danger, pack that go bag and reach out for help immediately. But if you're not in that physical danger, you're in the emotional, mental danger, which is very real. We talk about it all through this podcast. The one thing you do have is a little bit of time. Take the time to increase your awareness, to go through some of the healing steps. Get the process started. Increase your emotional self-care. Begin the process of reestablishing your sense of reality. Begin building your support network. Get a little bit of this done before you start working through the steps of leaving. These steps may not be understood by those around you, and that's okay. Outsiders will often misinterpret them as weakness or indecision or confusion. Well, they're just never going to leave. They're just still playing the games. They don't get it. But this is not indecision and it's not weakness. It's strategy. It's being smart. It's preparation. It's risk management. These are necessary steps before you go packing a go bag and run out in the middle of the night. So for anyone that's sitting in judgment of somebody who's trying to leave or thinking about leaving or doesn't know if they want to leave a relationship with a covert narcissist, I want to ask you, if you've never walked this path, if you've never felt this kind of entrapment, why do you think that you would do it differently? Why do you think that you would do it better? It's only the people who've never lived this who would ever ask, why don't you just leave? So I'm going to tell those people, please give space to this friend or family member in your life who is going through the hardest thing they've ever done in their life. The most confusing, the most painful, the most exhausting situation they've ever been in. It's an extreme nightmare. And for anyone listening who's still in the thick of it, you're still in that relationship, trying to unravel the lies, trying to mentally prepare what your next step needs to be. Hear me when I say this. You are not weak. You are surviving something that is designed to break you. That takes strength. And every day you keep going, whether you leave or not, is a day that you're fighting for yourself and for those in your care. Your timeline does not need to look like anybody else's. In fact, it shouldn't. Anyone else's timeline would not be the right timeline for you and for your life. You get to take the time that you need. You get to take the time to leave emotionally before you ever leave physically. You even get to stay if that's what you decide is best in your situation. No one else gets to pick for you. No one else gets to decide what's best in your situation. You get to do that, and you get to build your strength and your support around you. And you absolutely deserve compassion every step of the way, and that compassion does not have an expiration date. You don't need a go bag to begin leaving or separating. You don't need dramatic proof to justify your pain. You don't need anyone else to understand what you are going through or to figure out your timeline. You don't have to defend yourself to anyone. Leaving does not start the day you walk out the door. It starts the day you start telling yourself the truth. And if that's where you are right now, then you're already on your way. Now, if you need help, support, please reach out to me. No matter where you are on this process, whether you're leaving, whether you're staying, or whether you're in that insufferable, indecisive, in-between spot, I can help you navigate this impossible situation. Reach out to me. You can find all of my resources on covertnarcissism.com. I do offer coaching, individual and group. This is hard work. This is real pain, and your feelings do matter. And you deserve support every step of the way. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we break apart the insidious nature of these incredibly destructive and frustrating to the ends of the earth individuals. If you are struggling with the isolation, overwhelming self-doubt, and obsessive ruminating, you are not alone. I offer live, personalized coaching that is specific for you. This coaching can be individual or group sessions, or a combination of the two. You can find all the information at covertnarcissism.com. Reach out anytime. My email address is Renee, R-E-N-E-E, at covertnarcissism.com. And remember, I am not a therapist and you are not a victim, but I am a coach and you are a survivor. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a health care provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.
This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy and features real testimonials.
This was our first time trying therapy, and honestly, it was long overdue. Looking back, we just wish we had started sooner.
Regain's qualified therapists help couples when they can't get there on their own.
We thought it was intimacy issues, but Andrea helped us uncover a deeper root cause we hadn't even realized was there.
Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. Regain, couples therapy that works.